All right, guys, so once we have your tables filled out with your net pay and your gross pay, what we're going to take a look at now is graphing your two tables. And we want to make sure that you are using your graph paper for creating these graphs. So we have an example of one over here on the side. If you take a look at, this is an example of a teaching salary. So once again, we just grabbed a random profession. Well, not too random because we were all teachers, and we thought that would be the best fit here. The first thing we want to make sure we do is give our graph a title. So as you can see here, we have Ms. Rummel's teaching salary. So you can put whatever you'd like there. You can make it catchy, whatever your topic is going to be for your career choice. Next, we're going to take a look at labeling the x-axis. So we're going to go down here. And remember, the x-axis represents our independent variable. So I know you might have a hard time seeing that, but I'll show you a bigger one on the next slide. But we're going to put down there number of years teaching because the x-axis affects the y-axis, which would be the salary. And notice what we're going to put this in. We're going to put it in terms of thousands. So that's pretty important because if you notice, you look closely here, we got a break right at the bottom, and then we're going to start at 30, 35, 40, 45. Now, that's not just $45, that's obviously 45,000. So make sure you specify that based on what your salary is. If you want to actually put the thousands in the y-axis, that's fine, but I think most of the time we usually make that as a little key to represent what it stands for. And back up to the x-axis here, label the x-axis number of years. Remember, our chart went from 0 to 10 years. So we're going to go approximately from 0 years to 10 years down on the x-axis. From the y-axis, now this could change obviously based on your profession. If you're an anesthesiologist or a surgery, your y-axis over here is going to obviously end much higher than our teaching salary does. Here we put a break in there. So we did start at 0, but our break actually began right at 30. So from 30, we're going to end at, and if you notice the 10th year here, with this dot right here, is going to end right around 100,000. So we went from 0 to 100 with that break in there, actually started at 30. Then along the way, as you see, let me change colors here, you can see all the points that we plotted. There's one for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5, and so on, all the way up. And then the net pay and the gross pay is going to be graphed similarly, obviously with different values based on the tax is definitely going to be lower. So once we graph our ordered pairs, we're then going to now take a look at the curve that takes place here. Now, we do create a trend line because this is an example on scatter plots. And we want to be able to create a trend line and then write an equation for this trend line. So we are going to have you draw a line of best fit. So as you can see, there's already one drawn in there. I'm not going to draw another one. And then a line here. Now, technically that is a curve. It's what we call exponential growth, but let's not worry about that. Like it says down here, we'll discuss this later. But we are going to make a line instead of that curve. And then we're going to look for correlation based on our trend line. So I think it's, well, I don't want to give it away, but what type of correlation is happening here as my years of salary increase? What happens to my salary itself? Then draw a line of best fit, and we already took care of that. So if you take a look at this graph a little bigger, you can see here, this might clear things up a little bit, but I think you could have just got the general purpose on the last graph. Here's an example of ours. And once again, your y-intercept should be very close to where this line would actually connect. Here it's about 37, then our first year, second year, and so on, it goes up and up. So this is what our graph should look like. And once again, remember, this should be graphed on the same sheet of graph paper whenever we are doing the graph by hand. This must be done on paper, not on your iPad, not in Excel. This needs to be done on paper. And then the next video we'll take a look at will be on writing the equations of these trend lines that you just created, which we learned back in section 5.6, 5.7.